everyone and welcome to today's video. So you may be thinking, what the hell man, it's November, and you're not wrong. But I promise all of this is related to today's video. So with Christmas approaching and Black Friday being upon us, I decided that there's no better time to buy presents for my family and friends. And since there's a lockdown going on and I can't go to any stores, I've decided that this year I'm gonna do all my shopping online. After spending 2, 3, 4, 5 hours in the Amazon jungle, I finally found a very nice pair of PJs, which I thought of buying for my mum. But there was one teeny tiny problem. They were pricey. Like not crazy kind of pricey, but pricey for me. Like £100 kind of pricey. Okay, so they were pricey, but as you might remember, it was Black Friday, which meant that that specific pair of PJs was discounted by 55%. So rather than paying £100, it would only cost me 45 quid. And at that point, I was like, okay, this actually is a pretty good deal. I can get it for less than half the price. And then grab my laptop, I was ready to add it to the basket, and I just remembered, you see, because I have a very bad memory actually. But in this case, I remembered that I've seen a very similar pair of PJ like that for £25 in a store. And at that point, I was like, you're asking me to pay 45 quid when I've seen a very similar one for 25. And I started feeling ripped off. Within seconds, I went from, oh my God, this is such a good deal, to I am getting fully ripped off. They're asking me to basically pay double for the same PJ. Well, this is the anchoring effect in action. Well, initially I was anchored to that £100 and I was like, I'm getting a good deal because I'm paying only 45. As soon as I remember that I've actually seen something similar and that other pair was costing 25, my anchor shifted to that 25 and I felt like I was getting ripped off because I was paying almost 100% more for the same PJ. So how do you know how much to pay for something? When do you know that something is a good deal or is a rip-off? In order to decide, you need a reference point. You need a cue to help you evaluate your option. The anchoring effect is a cognitive bias which influences you to rely too heavily on the very first piece of information that you receive, and then utilize this very piece of information in order to make a judgment. And this doesn't only apply when you're planning to buy a pair of PJs or a car or a house or when you're spending money, but it applies to so many other different situations. The first mention of the anchoring effect comes from Kahneman and Tversky all the way back in 1974 in their paper Judgment Under Uncertainty. And there's a few interesting things they mention in this paper. The very first one is that under uncertainty, a lot of these biases are much more powerful. So they have a much bigger influence on how you make decisions when you are uncertain about what's the right decision to make. Regarding the anchoring effect, people tend to make estimations based on an initial value, and that value is adjusted in order to decide on the final answer. The issue here is that adjustments are typically insufficient as different starting points will yield different results. And the last very interesting thing that the authors have mentioned in the paper is that even paying the participants to be more accurate didn't really help reduce the anchoring effect. One of the most classic examples of the anchoring effect is Steve Jobs' presentation of the iPad all the way back in 2010. And here are some of the highlights of that presentation.
So, iPad, it's phenomenal. It's the best device I've ever seen for enjoying and sharing photography. Great for enjoying your music collection. You can carry literally thousands of books around. An amazing product. Tremendous breadth. What should we price it at? Well, if you listen to the pundits, we're going to price it under $1,000, which is code for $999.
So here you can see the first initial anchor, which is $999.
We have met our cost goals. And
he just continues building upon that and ensuring that people understand that this is a product that actually will cost at least $999 before just shattering it down and being like,
at just $499. $499.
Alright, so lastly, let me give you another couple of very relatable examples. One of them trying to get a salary increase from your job, and the other one looking at how many years you still have to live. So starting with the salary negotiation, if you are trying to get a salary increase from your boss, while you may feel uncomfortable to make that initial offer, as you might have guessed, research shows that whoever makes the first offer has the edge because of the anchoring effect. One study even found that even if you say some outrageously high number, you still end up overall getting a higher salary than if you start low. So bottom line, don't be afraid to ask. And secondly, as I've mentioned, anchoring influences more than just money. Let me give you a personal example. In my case, my grandparents ended up living over 100 years old. If my grandparents also live over 100 years old, then it's quite safe for me to assume to some extent that I'm gonna live at least until about 80, 90. But if both my grandparents and my grandparents would have lived up to 60, then my expectations would have been different, because I would anchor to that 60 and expect to live about 50, 60, or maybe 70, but around that number. To conclude, the anchoring effect has a big impact on the choices that we make. From decisions on things that we buy every single day to how we live our lives. And there's a few things I would like you to take away from this video. The first one is that experts are prone to these biases as much as any other person. Secondly, thinking about the anchoring bias, usually as soon as the anchor is set, there will be a bias towards that value. But worry not, there are a few things that you can do in order to improve your decision making. And that brings us to the last point. While these biases are called unconscious, it does not mean that you can do nothing about them. Will they always impact you? Yes. Can you completely erase their impact? No. But you can still be more self-aware of how they work and when they happen, and utilize well-thought arguments in order to diminish their effect. Thanks again for watching. I hope you found this valuable and insightful. If you haven't already and you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing to my channel, and I will see you on the next one.